In a time with aging iBooks, underpowered PowerBooks, overworked G5s, Apple released something revolutionary. Or evolutionary. Small and cheap. The MacMini G4.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Alec Likes Macintosh. So, at the very end of the PowerPC era, Apple introduced a new machine, a new PowerPC machine, the MacMini G4. It was a new case, new everything. Well, no, that's a lie. It wasn't new everything because its motherboard was based on the 2.0 USB 2.0 eMac and featured a 1.25 or a 1.42 G4 processor. It was a fairly simple little machine, and it was the first compact Mac to be released since the G4 Cube, which was positioned as a compact version of the Power Mac G4. The Mac Mini was a new class of Mac. It was the low-cost option, the LC of the thousands, if you will. It was started at $499, which was downright cheap for a Macintosh at the time. The eMac, which was just above it, was at $799, and the iMac was $1299. So, we've got ourselves a new compact Mac and a new compact enclosure running a fairly typical 1.25 gigahertz G4 processor. Performance-wise, what you would expect from a baseline G4 processor. Not stellar, but then again, the top-of-the-line G4s in the PowerBooks at the time weren't that much better. Hence the shift to Intel just about a year after the introduction of the Mac Mini. So, to take this apart, it required basically a knife to pry open the case. So in previous and existing Macintoshes at the time, you could usually get to the RAM fairly easily, at least one slot of the available RAM, either with a door or opening the side of the machine. The Mac Mini was not that case. The Mac Mini had to be taken apart, and you had to basically pull it apart to get to the one, and only one, RAM slot. It does take up to a gig, which if you're running 10.4, 10.5, that's not actually that bad. 1 gig is going to get you pretty far. So, you had the external case, which had to be pried off. You then had to remove the CD and hard drive caddy, which also included the cooling fan, which, by the way, in the 1.5 gigahertz models, towards the very, very end, had a slightly bigger fan because it ran a slightly hotter. We can talk about that in a second. But, so you get this layered assembly. Under that would be the board, which everything is on. We've got a spot for the modem, a spot for the air porta card, and this connects to the bridge piece that goes to the hard drive and the CD drive. Heatsink for our processor, and then our graphics chip. I don't know what the hell that is. And then the base. Now this is what is so bad. So basically, the more times you open it, the clips start breaking off on the side, so this one's lost the front too. And then the mounts for the screws that keep everything together are mounted in plastic, and those in this Mac Mini have all sheared off and you can just take this one apart easy peasy. The other ones, not so much, or at least this one. And why do I have two Mac Minis? Anyway, so that's pretty much the anatomy of Mac Mini. So, compact, yes. Repairable? By today Apple standards, pretty repairable. By that, the standards of those days, about on par. So, at $499, it was supposed to kind of capture those new to Mac users or Mac users looking for a cost-effective upgrade, but let's focus on these new Mac users. So it was advertised as a bring-your-own mouse, keyboard, mouse, and monitor, which means it was expected that this would be kind of capturing some of those Halo or the iPod Halo effect customers, so people who experience with the iPod was just so wonderful that they were like, I'm going to ditch my Windows PC and switch to Mac. And here would be their cost-effective option to get onto the Macintosh platform. Though at 1.25 gigahertz, 256 megabytes of RAM, and a 4200 RPM hard drive, that experience would not have been the best. But that's typical of Apple fashion, for whatever reason. Anyway, so there was that option, but there was a major drawback to that, and that would be with only 2 USB ports. If you were using a standard PC mouse and keyboard, those 2 USB ports would have been gone. It's like the marketing department and the hardware department were not talking to each other when they were planning this machine. Because if they were, they would have put at least 3. So which is what they ended up doing on subsequent Intel models, although 3 by 1, 5 USB ports on this sucker. That's pretty intense, but we're not looking at the Intel version, we're only looking at PowerPC ones. Anyway, back to our PowerPC Mac Mini. So that's the Mac Mini. However, at $499, the Mac Mini would have put itself right at the same price point as some of the G4 upgrades that were still available for the older G4 models. So, imagine we have an AGP Graphics G4 from, let's say, early 2000, late 1999, and we were looking for a new Mac, not looking to spend a whole bunch of money. We have a keyboard, we have a mouse, we have a display, and we have an aging tower. We could go to, say, PowerLogix or Newer Tech or Sonnet Technologies and buy ourselves a CPU upgrade that would have been somewhere between the 1.1 to 1.6 gigahertz range for a G4. For instance, an AGP Graphics with a 1.2 gigahertz upgrade chip is within spitting distance of at least the Geekbench score of a baseline 1.25 gigahertz Mac Mini G4. So that would have set you back somewhere between $399 to $799, or to not go through all the hustle and bustle of doing that, installing it, dealing with whatever possible issues you might have running 10.4, you could just go out and buy a new Mac Mini. Limitations, yes, but it's a budget machine with a max ceiling of 1 gigabyte of RAM and a hard drive that you could actually get to if you really wanted to upgrade it. Maybe not such a bad choice. Anyway, so why do I have 2 on the desk right now? So what I have right here is representing the first run, which was the 1.25 gigahertz or 1.42, or the last run. Now, Apple did a little quiet update halfway through the G4 Mac Mini run, where they upgraded them to a 1.33 on the low end and a 1.5 on the high end. However, it wasn't ever widely marketed. So you would have bought a 1.4 and then all of a sudden you turn it on and get a 1.5 gigahertz. Nice little... Also included a 5400 RPM hard drive and a 64 megabytes of video RAM over the original 32. So the 1.5 is actually not that bad, except for the time that it was released, which would have been months before its discontinuation and its replacement by the Intel chip machines, which had faster front side bus, faster RAM, more RAM, dual processor, just faster. They were just faster. By all accounts, they were just faster. Unless, of course, you were trying to do hardcore Photoshop and using a PowerPC version on an Intel. That might not have been so great. We should actually do a video on that. That might be interesting. Anyway, so here it is, the Mac Mini. In the end, the Mac Mini G4 only ran for about 1 year and about a month. So it was introduced in January of 2005 and then discontinued on the last day of February 2006 when all the Intel machines were launched. So there it is. The wonderful, the cute, the not so powerful Mac Mini G4. Thank you.